Doctor,"
said Brigadier Alistair Lethbridge-Stewart, somewhat acerbically, his hands on his hips.
"You're obviously very busy, so I won't trouble you any further." "Thanks, old chap,"
said the Doctor, rather abstractedly, not looking up from the bench at which he was seated in his laboratory at Unit HQ.
"Much appreciated."
The Brigadier looked slightly put out at such a ready dismissal.
"Don't mention it, please." "My dear fellow wouldn't dream of it."
Torn between indignation and resignation, the Brigadier marched out of the laboratory. The Doctor, bent over his task, hardly even noticed him go. Indeed, he was so intent on the piece of equipment on which he was working that he was unaware he once more had company until he heard an unexpected sound behind him, a whisper like soft folds of fabric swishing against each other. He looked round, sonic screwdriver still poised for use in one hand, and raised his eyebrows. There, standing next to the TARDIS in its customary corner, was the mysterious woman who had accosted him in each of his previous incarnations. Despite the passage of time, she looked exactly as she had at their last two meetings. She was looking at the TARDIS, and she briefly brushed its surface with her fingertips before turning her full attention to him, the beginnings of a smile curving her lips.
"Oh, hello! It's you. How do you do that? This appearing and disappearing trick of yours, I mean. It's most disconcerting, you know."
"Since it takes quite a lot to disconcert you, Doctor, I think I'll take that as a compliment."
Her eyes twinkled, inviting him to share her amusement. The Doctor found himself responding to her mood. He had to admit that he did enjoy solving enigmas. Her recurring appearances definitely presented him with one, and she knew it, and knew that he knew it, and, he suspected, very much enjoyed knowing it. He studied her for a moment.
"Don't you think it's about time you told me your name? Seems terribly impolite for me to keep having to designate you as that mysterious woman who keeps turning up when I least expect it."
Now how can I refuse such an elegant appeal as that? I can see I shall have to succumb to the elegance and charm with which you've been blessed in this regeneration, Doctor. You may know me as Dasterian.
"Delighted, madam, I'm sure. And to what do I owe the pleasure this time?"
"Oh, I just thought it was about time I dropped by to see how you're..."
Her gaze fell upon the piece of equipment on which he had been working.
"Wait a minute. That's a dematerialization circuit. What are you..." "Oh, I see. The Time Lords still have you confined to Earth, I take it. And you, being you, are trying to circumvent them."
"Not very successfully at the moment,"
the Doctor conceded, laying both the circuit and his screwdriver down on the bench, and swivelling on his seat to give her his full attention.
"Still, I have a saying on this planet, if at first you don't succeed, try again."
Dasterian smiled.
"And you are trying. I'm sure that's how the Time Lords think of you, at least."
"I'd imagine so, which seems only fair, since that's how I always think of them."
Still, to quote another of the sayings on this planet, there's a silver lining to every cloud, isn't there? Axos, the Autons, the Daemons, just some of the threats from which you've protected the Earth since your... how shall I put it? Your internment.
"If you're listing my successes, don't forget to mention the Master's attempts to exploit various situations that have arisen. Letting him get control of this planet would only lead to disaster for everyone and everything on it."
Dasterian eyed him thoughtfully.
You seem to have a well-developed instinct to protect the innocent, which I think is going to stand not only you, but also many others in good stead in the future. None of these threats were things anybody would objectively expect you to feel obliged to defend against. And yet there you are, continually saving the Earth from alien harms. You know, Doctor, I'm inclined to think that you've really become quite fond of your little blue and white prison.
"Perhaps I have. There's a lot here to like when it comes down to it. Places and people."
Oh, I agree. There are exceptions, of course, but by and large, their hearts are in the right place, wouldn't you say? Even if, unlike yourself, they do only have the one.
The Doctor leaned back, his arms folded, awarding her a quizzical stare.
"It's most gratifying to know there's so much we agree on, but would you mind satisfying my curiosity on one point in particular? Why these repeated visits? What exactly is the nature of your interest in me and my activities?"
Doctor, I'm surprised at you. That's not how one's supposed to read a story, now is it? Here we are, only 3 chapters into your story, and already you're wanting to look at the last page.
Perhaps my story is such a page-turner that I can't bear to put it down.
I think you might be surprised to learn how many people there are who'd agree with you. You definitely have a target audience. But there's a time and a place for everything, and I'm sure I must be keeping you. You've probably got a neutron flow whose polarity needs reversing, so perhaps, like the Brigadier, I should let you get on with it.
And meanwhile, wait for the next page to be turned, I imagine.
The Doctor steepled his fingers and regarded her quizzically.
You do realise that if I succeed in getting this dematerialisation circuit to work again, you won't find me here on your next visit?
You need have no fears on that score, Doctor. Wherever you are, I shall always know where to find you.
Would you mind telling me how?
Instead of answering, she focused on something behind him with an expression of great interest.
Oh, did you take my advice about carrying a screwdriver after all? You did, didn't you? And there it is. That is your sonic screwdriver there on the bench, isn't it, Doctor?
The Doctor instinctively glanced behind him. Almost instant realisation occurred, and he turned back just as swiftly. But of course, Dastiriam was gone.
What a very distracting lady you are. Very distracting and very clever. Well, my dear Dastirium, let's see if I can achieve the same vanishing trick as you, shall we?
He turned back to the bench, picked up the sonic with his right hand, and with his left reached for the recalcitrant dematerialisation circuit.